What's up, guys? I wanted to take a few minutes in this video and basically show you the basic cleaning technique of a 1911. Of course, this is my Taurus PT 1911, and this is just a few of the techniques that I use that I thought that I would share with you guys. It's always important to maintain your firearms, to make sure that they are well cared for, and you know, the better you care for them, the longer they're going to last you. The step that you always want to remember, step one, the very most important thing when cleaning a firearm, is to always make sure that it is unloaded. Okay, you can see that we do not have a magazine in this gun currently. I'm going to keep it pointed in the safe direction. I'm going to cycle that action open, and I'm going to double check to make sure there's nothing in the chamber, which you can clearly see there is not. Okay, the 1911 is a classic. It's one of my favorites. Of course, I've got a lot of favorites, and this is a gun that has been in a few of my videos recently. It's time, after spending time at the range, things like that, it's time for this to have a good cleaning. This particular model has the full-length guide rod, which you can see here extends all the way out to the end of the barrel. So the way that we take this particular model apart is you can get one of the wrenches, but I currently don't have one, and actually you don't absolutely have to have one. What I'm going to be doing is basically taking something hard that I can simply press this down with. This right here is what is going to capture the rod, the guide rods, and the spring, the recoil spring. This combined with the bushing. Okay, what you've got to do, you want to make sure that it's kind of pointed away from you. You want to make sure again that it is unloaded. You want to press this down, and then I'm going to rotate this bushing. Okay, I'm going to be rotating it clockwise to where it will allow me to get this out. You can see there I've got it just rotated slightly. It's still holding on right there. So then put your thumb over that, because it's going to be under some tension, and I'm going to continue to rotate it, and then it's going to want to come out of there. That's why it's important to keep your hand on that. You can see here the spring right there. Normally with the 1911, if you don't have the full-length guide rod, this is just a button. Some people like the button a little bit better. It really doesn't matter to me, make it much difference to me, but it's just what everybody's preference is. Now that I have that apart, I need you to pay attention to this little notch right here. What we're going to be doing is pushing that through. This is the other side of your slide catch, but what we have got to do is we have got to line this up with the notch right here in the slide. I'm going to move it back forward. You can see the larger notch right here, and then of course there is a very small notch right there. Right here on the back of the slide stop, you've got to line that small notch up with that slide stop, just like that. Then you can simply push from here, push that up just like that, simply pull that slide stop completely out. Alright, next we just simply push the slide off of the front of the gun. Here is the frame, lay it over here. Now we have the barrel, the slide, the guide rod. I'm just pulling that right out just like that. Next we're going to take the bushing that is in the front of our slide, and earlier we rotated it clockwise to be able to get that out, to get the spring, the recoil spring out. Now we're going to rotate it counterclockwise just like this. That's going to allow us to pull that bushing completely out of the slide. You can see there the notch on that bushing. It comes right out. And then after we have that out, our barrel will simply slide right out the end of the slide, just like that. Set it down. Here is the slide. Okay, and again, this is a Series 80. You can tell by the plunger right here, the hammer, the firing pin block safety right there. If you've ever wondered how to tell the difference between a Series 70 and a Series 80, if you open the action on one, look underneath the slide, and if you see that little plunger, then it is a Series 80. I did a video about that a while back. Now, what I like to do is, first of all, take a good solvent. This is just what I'm using, Rim Oil. There's CLP, there's lots of different ones out there on the market. The barrel, of course, is what's going to get the dirtiest. You can see here the buildup that's on that. So I like to just take that, simply spray it down, just like so. Make sure they get plenty in there. Okay, and I'm just going to set that aside and let it do its thing. The same here. I'm just going to kind of spray everything down. There's usually not a lot of buildup on the barrel bushing. The slide, the rails in particular, I don't like spraying anything back here close to where the firing pin is, but I do like to make sure that I can clean those rails. So I'm just going to spray a little bit, and yeah, you're going to get it on your hands. You can wear gloves if you want, but I typically don't. I'm going to set that down, pick up my frame. The same thing here. Going to give it a little bit of a spritz. You can see down there that ramp all in here. And yeah, some people criticize me for using too much, but you know what? I want to make sure that it's clean. Alright, just set this down just like so. And what I'm going to do now, because I want that barrel to set for a few minutes to give that solvent plenty of time to work on that. You can walk away and leave it all setting for a minute or so, or you can simply go to work. It's really up to you. This is just how I do it. Again, I'm not going to necessarily white glove this, but I do want to make sure that it's good and clean. You can go ahead and take the guide rod, wipe it down, maybe put a little bit of your solvent right there on a napkin or whatever you're using to clean it with, and just kind of wipe that down. Of course, the rim oil is a solvent slash lubricant, so this is one thing that does two different steps, and I think it works fairly well for keeping guns clean. If I've got a lot of buildup on one, I will use just a straight solvent, and as many of you all know, of course, hops number 9. I'll put links down in the description to any of this if any guys are needing any cleaning supplies for your guns. Now I'm going to take the slide, and I'm going to take one of these brushes. These brushes are very handy. You want to get underneath that rail very well. Okay, and you remember I did not spray back in here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull some of that solvent back to the area where the firing pin is. I really don't like getting anything in there with that firing pin. You can cause yourself problems if there's enough buildup in there. You know, and of course you can take it out and clean it, but this is just a standard field strip and cleaning here. I want to make sure that I clean inside those rails real well. Okay, and this gun has been in a desperate need for cleaning, so it's probably going to take just a few minutes to get it where it needs to be. Okay, clean up in there, scrub up in there, and one place that you want to pay particular attention to as well, the breech face here, especially underneath the extractor. If I can get that to focus right, this extractor here, if you get buildup underneath there, you can cause yourself some problems. Okay, you can cause some failures to eject, things like that. So take a small end of this brush, very handy. Of course, I'll leave a link to some of these brushes down in the description. Just flip it around, scrub underneath there real well. Okay, I mean, just make sure that it is clean. I know there's a lot of folks out there that will completely disassemble the slide on their 1911 to clean them, and that's, you know, a good thing to do every now and then. But for just the basic cleaning, it isn't necessary every time you clean your gun. Okay, again, I want to make sure that I get underneath there real well. You can maybe dip just a little bit of the solvent on the brush to get underneath there. But again, try to keep it from getting inside where your firing pin is. And then just again go around clean that breech face real good, just like that. Get all that buildup out. Okay. And what I like to do, you can get swabs or other things for cleaning your gun, but I would just recommend saving yourself a little bit of money and just get you a big box of Q-tips. They work great, and they're not very expensive. You can get them anywhere. I like to get underneath here where that rail is, and you can just see how nasty that is right there. So you're going to go through a few Q-tips. So buy the large box. That's what I always do. If you like keeping your guns well maintained, then this is a step I would highly recommend you do. Okay, you can see that one there. We're going to go in and get us another Q-tip. And just keep going inside on those rails until you get all of that garbage out of there. It will make your gun perform better. The more buildup that you have there, the more difficult that it's going to be for that slide to function properly. And you can see there, this gun is filthy. So, but guys, I'm going to pause the video real quick. I'm going to give this a good thorough cleaning, and then we're going to come right back.
One eternity later.
Now, after a little bit of time and several Q-tips, as you can see here laying out on the table, I've gotten a lot of that buildup out. You can see there, I run that Q-tip in there. Much better than what it was compared to some of these, as you can see. This is something that I wanted to do on this particular pistol because of the fact that it has not had a very good cleaning since I had it. I have put several rounds through it, but it's not had a very good cleaning up to this point. And while you have your gun apart, it's a good idea to go ahead and inspect everything, look to see the way that the slide is wearing, and you can see here there is some wear on the rails. You can also see a little bit down there on the locking lugs on the slide. And so it's just a real good idea to go over the gun just to make sure that your sights are not loose, that sort of thing, just anything out of the ordinary. You know, just wipe it down and, you know, get all the buildup stuff off of it. Okay, just like that. These little brushes again come in real handy, like getting back in here, and you can see now that it's just much cleaner than what it was previously. Now I'm going to set that slide over here, and I'm going to come back to the barrel because, like I said earlier, I wanted to make sure that that solvent had plenty of time to work inside that barrel. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and give it another little spritz, just like that. Take my brush, force it through that barrel, make sure that I get all of that buildup as loose as possible, just like so. Okay, now set that down. Something that you can do, you can get some of the patch holders for your patches in these cleaning kits. I have a tendency of breaking them for whatever reason. So what I'll do in many cases is I'll simply take a patch, just wrap it around my brush just like that, and then force that through that barrel to kind of wipe it out. You can see there that there's clearly some buildup in there. Run it through a couple of times and then get a fresh patch. And yes, they will stick onto these. That's something that is very well known if you do this, but it's not a big deal. Simply get another patch. And I usually buy these in bulk, You can get them very cheaply. You can also use old t-shirts, that sort of thing. Simply wrap it around that brush. Go back through the barrel. And it's really up to you as far as how much time you spend doing this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the more buildup that you get out of that barrel, the better off you're going to be. You can see there, fairly clean now. It's a good idea to inspect the barrel, look for cracks, bulging, anything like that. If you ever see any cracks or bulging in your barrel, stop using it immediately. It needs to be replaced. You don't want the gun to blow up on your hand. Make sure around the lug that it is, around the link, that it is good and clean. Wipe it down. Just like so. Make sure that that ramp is real good and clean there where it goes into that barrel. That way it will help you with feeding. And that's something about these Taurus pistols. Some people love the Taurus 1911 and some people do not. I actually like them. When they first came onto the market, I was kind of looking forward to getting one, but I never did. And then, of course, recently, if any of you guys have watched my previous video, you all know I found the deal on this one that I just could not pass up, so it came home with me. It was a used gun, but there's very little wear on this gun up until I got it. And of course I like shooting them, so it has gotten some wear since. Pick up my frame, give it a little bit of spritz on those rails, just like that. Take my brush, scrub inside those rails, because just like I did on that slide, I want to clean these very well. Okay, I'll break all of that loose, make it easier to wipe out. Go to the other side, same thing. Don't want anything obstructing that action. 1911s in particularly, they like to have just a little bit of lubrication on that slide. You want to make sure that it stays lubricated, especially if you're going to use it as a defensive gun. Then you definitely want to make sure that you're not going to have any problems in the way that it operates. Okay, keeping it clean is one of the best ways to ensure that. Just wiping that out some initially, and then I'm going to go back to the Q-tips. As I mentioned earlier, this is something that I like to do on my pistols, just to make sure that I get all of that buildup out. And you can see there, even with scrubbing it and wiping it with a paper towel, you don't always get a lot of that buildup out of those rails. So it's a good idea to come in with a Q-tip or swab and try to clean that out, because that buildup, the more buildup that you get in there on those rails, the greater likelihood of having some kind of a malfunction. That's something you do not want, particularly in a defensive firearm. There's still a lot of people that carry 1911 for self-defense, and I'm probably going to carry this one some myself. You know, I like 1911s, kind of on a 1911 kick lately. For you subscribers of the channel, you've probably seen that because I've had one in several of the videos that I've done. As you can see there. Get in there and get all that mess out. Just like so. You can see there, I mean, it's that buildup's coming out. Just like that. That feed ramp, you want to pay close attention to. A little bit of spritz of cleaner. Take my brush. Do not use a steel brush on cleaning your guns. A soft bristled brush is fine. At the most, a brass bristled brush. But, you know, an old toothbrush would even work well. Clean in here real well. Just get that feed ramp cleaned off good. You can see there it does get some buildup. Make sure that you don't have any burrs or anything on that feed ramp, because it will perform much better if that feed ramp is nice and slick. And even on the Taurus, you can see here how that feed ramp is. It's a very slick finish. It's polished. Is it the most highly polished feed ramp? No, but they clearly spent some time making sure that that feed ramp was polished. And you can see there the reflection in the camera. You can see just how well it is. Make sure I clean that off real good. Go in here, get all of this buildup out, and you want to make sure that none of your Q-tip comes apart and gets down into the workings of your gun. Get back there, face of that hammer, just like that. It's a good idea to occasionally take your grip panels off. You don't have to each time you clean your gun, but it is a good idea to occasionally remove them and clean under them. You can get buildup and other things underneath the gun. I have seen guns that have been ruined because of the buildup that would get underneath them, especially metal frame guns, revolvers, any kind of a metal frame gun. It's a real good idea to occasionally remove that grip panel. You know, if any of you guys have ever thought about replacing the grip panels on your guns, you know, that's a good opportunity to clean underneath there. Just reach in here. My finger's a little bit big. I'm just going to reach up in there, just push up on that grip just like that to loosen it, and it will come right up off the gun just like that. Okay, that's one side. Turn the frame over. And it's also a good time to inspect the frame of your 1911 to make sure that there's no cracks, anything like that in it. Loosen that screw. Loosen this screw. Since I've got the frame off on this side here, I can simply push. That will come off. Most of the time they'll just fall right off. Set it aside. And you can see, get a clean side of the paper towel and wipe that out. Something that you guys may be aware of with the Taurus pistols in particularly is these bushings, your grip bushings. Taurus at one time early on, they were using a different size bushing than a lot of the 1911's manufacturers were using, and it would often require you to get a set of Taurus specific 1911 grips or changing these bushings out. Of course, I'm not going to change these out. I have no need to. But if you were to remove them, it's literally you take a flat screwdriver and they should screw out. No problem. This gun needed a good thorough cleaning, and that's what we're doing. Inspect down inside that mag well. 1911 is a classic. I love them. A lot of people out there love them. And if you take care of them, treat them properly, they'll last you for a lifetime, even longer, into the next generation. Now I'm simply going to take my grip, lay it back in place, take my grip screws, put them back in. Snug those screws back down, but do not over tighten them. You don't want to run the risk of stripping them. And there's our frame, nice and cleaned up. Set that aside. I'm going to come to my barrel bushing. Just wipe it off, maybe just a little bit of rim oil on it. Wipe off your recoil spring. Take the guide rod, same, wipe it off. Now that we've got everything wiped down, we can start the reassembly process. Even though rim oil does have lubricating properties, I do like to occasionally use just a regular gun oil on my guns, but it's really up to you. So I'm going to take the barrel and the slide, and I'm actually going to put just a drop of oil down here where the locking lugs are. A drop there in the slide. Spread it around a little. Doesn't take a lot, but a 1911 in particular, you do want to make sure that you lube that gun. It's a good idea to put a little bit right here on the link. Again, does not take much. The barrel bushing, same there. It's just me, I put a little on the outside as well as on the inside. All the way over. Get that in place, and then I'm going to rotate it around just like so. Take my guide rod, slide it back into position, make sure of its orientation. You can see here the way that the guide rod is made. Right there you see that half moon cut. That's what's going to go against the barrel for any of you guys that are new to 1911s. Okay, just like that. I'm not going to put the recoil spring in just yet, and I'll show you why. Because it's much easier to get this back onto the frame without that spring being in place. You can slide it in just to kind of help hold that guide rod, but trust me when I say that you're going to make it harder on yourself if you reassemble the slide completely before you try to get that back on the frame. But it's up to you. It's just personal preference for me. Again, you might want to put a drop of oil down here around the hammer. It does not take much. Up here on the mechanics of it. As you're reassembling the gun, you want to pay attention to the position of that link when you go to slide the frame and the slide back together. Just like that. And you'll notice that I'm pushing on that barrel just a little bit to make sure that it goes into position, because what you want to do is to get that link lined up with that hole in the frame there, to where you can get that pin, that slide stop back into position. Okay, you can see right there, there is the link. So now I'm going to take my slide stop, I'm going to insert that through there. You don't want to force it, I just want it to drop into place, and then I'm just going to tug on it a bit just to make sure that it is through that link. You know, if it is through that link properly, you're not going to be able to pull that slide back forward, and we clearly are. Okay, so what we will do is to pull our slide back to that notch, that little notch there that it's kind of hard to see. That little notch right there in that slide needs to be back in alignment with our slide stop. You don't want to drag that across the frame. Depending on the finish that's on your gun, you can damage it, and you can have that idiot scratch, as it is commonly known as. So we're going to line up that notch with our slide stop. I'm going to just basically pinch it between my two fingers because I don't want to scratch that any more than necessary. And once you get that lined up properly, it will drop in place just like that. Okay, now we've got to get our barrel bushing rotated back around into the proper position. So I'm going to push the slide forward, set the gun upside down. Again, point it away from you because you don't want it to come up and hit you in the face. And then just press the recoil spring down into position just like that. Rotate that barrel bushing slightly, and it can catch that spring, that plunger, just like so. And then of course, if you have a wrench, using that wrench is very helpful. But if you do this enough, you'll get to where you do not need it. I'm just going to push that down slightly, and just simply continue to rotate that barrel bushing until I get it close, and then once it finally snaps into position, you can see it there. Right? Not a problem whatsoever. Now we are going to function test the gun. Put my safety on, press the trigger, hammer does not fall. Take the safety off. I'm going to press the trigger without holding the grip safety. It does not go off. And then of course, safe direction, press that trigger, hammer does fall. I'm going to hold that trigger back, I'm going to cycle that action. You can see when the action cycled, the hammer did lock back. Now I'm going to release the trigger and listen for the click. Okay, we know that the gun should function just fine. Okay guys, that is the basic techniques that I use for cleaning my Taurus PT 1911. Let me know your thoughts about this pistol down in the comments below. I like it. I would not have bought it if I did not like it. And it's a fun pistol to shoot, and as I mentioned earlier, I may even carry it. It's not going to replace my Glocks, but it's fun to carry something a little different every now and then. What I like to do occasionally too, if it's a gun that I'm going to be just putting up in the safe for a while, is I'll actually just leave them just a little bit wet. You don't necessarily have to do that with modern firearms with the finishes on them, but it's just something that I do, just kind of an extra added protection. But that's just me. I like taking care of my firearms. Anyways guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the links down in the description. I'll have links for some of the cleaning supplies. You can also find links to my other social media. You can find links to Patreon, where you can help support the channel there. My t-shirts, visit my website at boomsticktactical.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.